What if I told you the biggest reason smart people stay broke is the very thing that made them successful in the first place? Sounds strange, doesn't it? Every year, thousands of doctors, lawyers, engineers, and other highly educated professionals earn incredible incomes. Yet many of them are buried in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, and wondering why they never seem to get ahead. Meanwhile, someone earning half as much quietly builds wealth, buys investments, and eventually reaches financial freedom. How? How can someone with less education, less income, and fewer opportunities end up with more money? The answer isn't intelligence, it isn't luck, and it definitely isn't working harder. It's one simple difference in the way they think about money. Today I'm going to tell you a story that explains exactly why smart people stay broke, and how some of the wealthiest people in the world avoid the same trap. Welcome back to Just Invest. I'm John. Let me tell you about two friends, Daniel and Marcus. They grew up in the same neighborhood, walked to the same school every morning, sat in the same classrooms, and dreamed about having successful lives. But from an early age, everyone could tell they were different. Daniel was the student every teacher admired. He was always the first to raise his hand, the first to finish his exams, and almost always the one with the highest grades. Whenever parents wanted to motivate their own children, they would say, "Why can't you be more like Daniel?" Marcus wasn't a bad student. He simply wasn't exceptional. He passed his classes, enjoyed playing sports, loved reading books about business and successful people. But his report cards never made headlines. If you had asked anyone back then, which one will become rich? The answer would have been obvious. Daniel, without a second thought. Because that's what we're taught from the moment we're young. Get good grades, go to a great university, land a high-paying job, and money will take care of itself. Daniel believed that with all his heart, so he worked harder than everyone else. While his friends relaxed, Daniel studied. While others enjoyed weekends, Daniel prepared for exams. Every sacrifice felt worth it because he believed success was waiting on the other side. And eventually, it was. He graduated near the top of his class. Within weeks, he landed a prestigious job at one of the biggest companies in the city. The salary was more money than he'd ever imagined earning. His parents couldn't have been prouder. His friends congratulated him. His teachers said, "We always knew you'd make it." Meanwhile, Marcus took a different path. He found an ordinary job with an ordinary salary. Nothing glamorous, nothing impressive. At family gatherings, people would always compare the two. Daniel is doing incredibly well. Marcus is still trying to figure things out. Even Marcus started to believe it. Because when he looked at Daniel's new apartment, his new car, his expensive clothes, it certainly looked like Daniel had won. But appearances have a funny way of hiding the truth. Because 5 years later, the smartest person everyone knew had almost nothing to show for all the money he'd earned. And the man everyone underestimated was quietly becoming wealthy. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Success, 5 years later. Daniel and Marcus met for lunch at the same small restaurant they used to visit after school. As Daniel pulled into the parking lot, Marcus couldn't help but notice the brand new luxury car. "Wow," Marcus said with a smile. "You've done well," Daniel laughed. "It looks that way, doesn't it?" They sat down and began catching up. Daniel talked about his promotions, his long work hours, the pressure of leading bigger projects, the bonuses he'd earned. From the outside, his life sounded perfect. Then the waiter walked away, and Daniel's smile disappeared. He leaned across the table and quietly asked, "Can I tell you something?" Marcus nodded. "I'm broke." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean? You earn almost 3 times what I do." "I know." "So, where did the money go?" Daniel stared at his coffee for a moment. "I honestly don't know. The mortgage, the car payment, the credit cards, the vacations, the subscriptions, the dinners, the upgrades. It feels like every time I make more money, my expenses somehow make sure I never keep it." Marcus didn't say a word, because he had heard this story before. Not from Daniel, but from countless people. People with impressive careers, big salaries, fancy lifestyles, yet empty bank accounts. Marcus made one, different choice. Marcus's life looked much less exciting. He still drove the same reliable car. He lived in a modest apartment. He didn't buy something new every time he received a raise. When his salary increased, his lifestyle barely changed. Instead, he quietly increased one thing: the amount he invested every month. No celebration, no announcement, no expensive reward for working hard. He simply sent more money toward his future, year after year. Daniel thought Marcus wasn't enjoying life. Marcus believed he was buying something much bigger: freedom. Neither of them realized it at the time, but they weren't just making different financial decisions. They were following two completely different definitions of success, and that difference would change everything. Chapter 2. The Promotion That Changed Nothing. A few months later, Daniel got the news he'd been waiting years to hear. He had been promoted. Along with the promotion came a salary increase that most people could only dream of. His coworkers congratulated him. His parents were thrilled. That evening, Daniel called Marcus. "I finally did it," he said excitedly. Marcus smiled. "I knew you would. Congratulations." "I think things are finally going to change." "What do you mean?" "I'll finally have enough money to start investing," Marcus replied with one simple sentence. "I hope you do." The first paycheck arrived. Daniel looked at his bank account and couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in his life, he felt rich. A few weeks later, he moved into a larger apartment. "It's closer to work," he told himself. Then he upgraded his car. "I've earned it." Then came new furniture, a luxury gym membership. None of the decisions seemed irresponsible. Each one made perfect sense on its own, but together, they quietly consumed almost every extra dollar he earned. 3 months later, Daniel opened his banking app. He expected to see thousands sitting in his account. Instead, his balance looked almost the same as it had before the promotion. He stared at the screen. How is that even possible? He earned more than ever. Yet somehow, he still felt broke. The trap smart people fall into. Here's where many smart people make a mistake. They're incredibly good at solving problems, at work. They know how to analyze data, manage projects, lead teams, build complicated systems. But when it comes to money, they assume a higher income will solve everything. So they spend years learning how to make more money, without ever learning how to keep it. No one teaches them that wealth isn't measured by your paycheck. It's measured by what you keep. And what you keep is determined by your habits, not your intelligence. Marcus had a different definition of success. Around the same time, Marcus also received a raise. It wasn't nearly as large as Daniel's. His friends encouraged him to celebrate. "Buy yourself something nice. You deserve it." Marcus almost did. He walked into a luxury watch store. One watch immediately caught his attention. It looked incredible. He imagined wearing it to work. He imagined the compliments. He even imagined how successful it would make him look. Then he asked himself one question. Do I want people to think I'm wealthy, or do I actually want to become wealthy? He smiled, walked out of the store, and transferred the money into his investment account instead. No one applauded, no one noticed. There wasn't even a photo to post online. But Marcus understood something Daniel didn't. Real wealth is often invisible. The nicest car in the parking lot might be financed. The biggest house on the street might come with enormous monthly payments. The designer clothes might have been bought with a credit card, looking rich. And being wealthy are two completely different things. And the smartest people sometimes confuse one for the other. That's why intelligence alone isn't enough. Because money doesn't reward what you know. It rewards what you consistently do. And Daniel was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Chapter 3. The Question That Changed Everything. A few weeks later, Daniel invited Marcus over for dinner. After they finished eating, Daniel opened his laptop. "I want to show you something." Marcus moved closer. On the screen was a spreadsheet. Income, bills, credit card payments, car payment, mortgage, insurance, shopping. Everything was neatly organized. Daniel looked frustrated. "I've done the math 100 times. I make good money. I don't waste it. So, why does it feel like I'm running in circles?" Marcus looked at the spreadsheet for a few seconds. Then he closed the laptop. Daniel looked confused. You're not even going to look at it? Marcus smiled. I don't need to. What do you mean? Marcus leaned back in his chair. Daniel, you don't have a math problem. You have a habit problem. The room went silent. Daniel laughed. No, seriously. I am serious, Marcus continued. You think your money disappears because you don't earn enough. But that's not what's happening. It disappears because every time your income grows, so does your lifestyle. The difference between income and wealth, Marcus continued. Do you know what most people do when they get paid? Daniel shrugged. They ask, what can I buy? But wealthy people ask a different question. What can I own? Daniel frowned. What's the difference? Marcus smiled. A car usually loses value. Designer clothes go out of style. But investments, businesses, real estate, those can continue working long after you've spent the money. One makes you look successful. The other quietly makes you successful. Daniel had spent years chasing a higher income. Marcus had spent the same years collecting assets. Neither of them noticed the difference at first, but now, the gap between their financial lives was becoming impossible to ignore. The wake-up call. That night, after Marcus left, Daniel couldn't sleep. He walked through his apartment, the giant television, the expensive furniture, the designer shoes lined up neatly by the door, the latest phone charging on the kitchen counter. For years, he had looked at these things with pride. Now, he saw them differently, not as proof of success, but as reminders of every dollar that could have been building his future instead. He wasn't poor. He wasn't irresponsible. He had simply spent years investing in a lifestyle, instead of investing in wealth. And that realization would become the turning point of his life, because once you see the difference, it's impossible to unsee it. Chapter 4. The Experiment. The next morning, Daniel made a decision, not a dramatic one. He wasn't going to sell everything he owned. He wasn't going to quit his job. And he definitely wasn't going to stop enjoying life. Instead, he gave himself a challenge, 90 days. For the next 3 months, every time he wanted to buy something that wasn't essential, he would ask himself one question. Will this make me look richer, or actually make me richer? If the answer was look richer, he wouldn't buy it. It sounded simple. 1 year later. A year passed. Daniel still worked at the same company. He still earned a good salary, but this time, his raises didn't automatically become bigger expenses. Instead, each raise meant bigger investments. His credit card balances had fallen. His savings had grown. His stress had started to disappear. One afternoon, Daniel and Marcus met for coffee. Marcus smiled. You look different. Daniel laughed. I haven't even bought new clothes. I'm not talking about your clothes. You look calmer. Daniel took a sip of his coffee. I finally understand. Understand what? Being smart got me a great career. But building wealth required something completely different. Marcus nodded. What was it? Daniel smiled. Discipline, patience, and realizing that money isn't about proving how successful you are. It's about creating the freedom to live life on your own terms. Marcus raised his coffee cup. Now you're thinking like an investor. And from that day forward, Daniel stopped chasing the appearance of success. He started building the reality of it. Because in the end, the smartest people don't stay broke because they lack intelligence. They stay broke because no one ever teaches them that earning money and building wealth are two completely different games. Once Daniel learned the rules of the second game, everything changed. Chapter 5. The Real Test. Over the next few years, something unexpected happened. Daniel's income continued to grow, but this time, so did his investments. If there's one lesson I hope you remember from Daniel and Marcus's story, it's this. Being smart can help you earn more money, but it won't automatically help you build wealth. Building wealth requires habits that aren't taught in most classrooms. The habit of spending less than you earn, the habit of thinking long-term instead of chasing short-term rewards. And perhaps the most important habit of all, understanding that your lifestyle should grow slower than your income. Because the gap between what you earn and what you spend is where wealth is created. If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments. What do you think keeps smart people broke? If this video helped you see money differently, leave a like, subscribe to Just Invest, and I'll see you in the next